Hey everyone, Brian Rundle, Black and White with Brian Rundle and Lana Quest. As you can see, Lana is not with me tonight. She is running a 5K. So the other night when we were on, I had so many different clips that I didn't have a chance to get to all of them. So I thought I'd do a little bit of a bonus show and throw in some of these clips. I'm recording this at 7:35 p.m. on June 6th, which is 1 hour before my Boston Celtics play game one in the NBA Finals. So it's not going to be a long show, but I wanted to kind of get this out there and talk about a few more things that we didn't have a chance to touch on the other night. The first thing I want to talk about is there was an interview that Donald Trump did on Fox News. It was a very light interview, as you would expect from Fox News with Donald Trump. They were throwing him softball questions, and we played a few of the clips the other night from that interview. But there was one that for some reason, as I was going through all the clips, I did not see the full clip on this one. And this one probably is the most interesting one of them all. So for years, I have been hearing from the MAGA world that the Jeffrey Epstein files that are being hidden by the government, if they ever got out, then everybody in Hollywood, Bill Clinton, Obama, whoever else they want to make up, or I don't know, maybe some of it was real. Who knows? I know it wasn't Obama, but let's say there was some people on that list. And I think this is something that MAGA is missing. Let's say that there were some people on that list. First of all, doesn't necessarily mean it proves that something happened that was nefarious or illegal. However, it would not look good. So, of course, in this day and age, if something doesn't look good, you just automatically assume it is truth. But let's just say that there was something in these files that not only showed that somebody flew to this particular island that has been reported that, and obviously, has been proven is true, that there were a lot of underage girls there being used as sex objects and sex trafficked by him and his, I think, girlfriend, who is now in prison as well. But anyway, this was a huge story for MAGA, and they're dying every day for this list to come out. But the other point I was going to make is, let's say that there was something that they found in this report that was in fact illegal. The difference between somebody like me and Lana, and I'm sure a lot of you out there watching, we would not lose our minds and defend that person. We would not continue to yell and scream that this is a witch hunt and this is fake news and it never really happened. We would let the process play out. And if it played out in a way where anybody was on that list, that whether we liked them or not, we would say, okay, they belong in jail. But if somebody like Donald Trump was on this list and it proved out that he did something nefarious or illegal, no. I mean, I think we all know at this point there is no chance at all, none, that they would admit that he did anything wrong. In fact, you could look this up online if you don't know already. There is a something that was filed to the court that Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein had sex with a 13-year-old girl and raped her. And the charges were later dropped. And of course, that's the other thing too, is on news like the CNNs and the MSNBCs, which I personally do not watch, but they are accused of being left-wing propaganda. If that were really true, then they would run with that story all the time and bring it up. But because the charges were dropped and there wasn't a case that played out, they don't run that story. But Fox News, the Newsmaxes, all that stuff, if there's a hint of anything that may have gone wrong, they will either report it, and not necessarily report it in a way where saying it's a fact, but they'll do that dumb shit where they say people are saying, and they'll do a lot of innuendos to make it look like that what you're listening to has a good chance of being real. And that's why a lot of the times me, Lana, and I'm sure a lot of you out there talk to people in the MAGA world. They are 100% sure that Hillary Clinton had people killed. They are 100% sure that Bill Clinton raped a bunch of young women on this island. They are 100% sure that Barack Obama spied on campaigns. It doesn't matter, because you just use one morsel of something and they will take it and run with it. And it's not just because they are what's the word I'm looking for? They're into, false and misinformation and disinformation. And I think the news channels like Fox News and Newsmax and all that know that. So they'll feed them this crap. But anyway, let's get to the point. The point is that Donald Trump was asked on this softball interview about the what he would classify and declassify, and they asked him on a couple of different things whether or not he would classify or declassify it, and his answer was interesting at best, telling possibly, but when they asked him about the Epstein files. But this kind of blew my mind, the way he reacted when they asked him about it.
Classify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you
Instant,
declassify
yes.
the JFK files?
Yeah.
Instant, yes.
I did a lot of it.
Would you
Even
declassify
claim.
the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so, because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there, because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would.
This is the most interesting part of that answer to me. First of all, Donald Trump has already proven out that he could say something and say that he's going to do something, and it never happens, and nobody calls him out on that. So why he would continue to answer the question and not just say, yeah, because he knows if he's president, he would never do it. And you could tell by that answer that he would not do it. Or if he's not president, he knows that he wouldn't be able to do it anyway. So I don't understand why he would continue with well, I don't know. I'd have to take a look at that one a little further, because we don't want to make sure that any fake news gets out there. Well, I mean, he didn't seem concerned about any fake news with 9/11. He didn't seem like he was concerned with any fake news about the JFK file. In fact, he even admitted that he released some. But he backed up very quickly on the Epstein thing. And, again, this is something you could bring up to the MAGA people and show them this clip and ask them, why is he hesitant on this? Why would he not release this as quickly as he would have the 9/11 and the JFK? And I think we all know at this point, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to them. They just will find a way to circumvent anything that you throw out there, and it's all ridiculous. But I found that clip incredibly interesting, and in my opinion, it was very telling. Again, I'm not somebody that is saying he's definitely on the list. Oh my God, now all news channels need to report that Donald Trump definitely had sex with young underage women, like a Fox News or a Newsmax. They wouldn't say definitely, but they would throw the innuendos out there. They would allow it to be thought as if it was something that really happened. Which actually brings me to my next few clips. So we just obviously had a guilty verdict last week with Donald Trump in the New York case, where he used campaign funds basically to pay off a porn star to keep her quiet, to not say anything before an election, which is illegal. You'll have a lot of people out there saying, this never happened before. And in a way, they're right, because there hasn't been many people who were running for president who've paid off porn stars and used that later to protect himself and use campaign funds. You're certainly not allowed to do that. Now, of course, MAGA World will try to compare a bunch of different things that have happened in the past and say, well, why didn't this person get arrested? Why didn't that? They have absolutely zero interest in looking up the facts. Try to ask somebody if they know the difference between when Mike Pence and Joe Biden took classified documents and they were found in their home versus what Donald Trump did. And they think it's the same exact thing, which they don't know is completely two different things that are, again, I encourage anybody. I've said this before on our show. I've said it to anybody that I talk to, whether they're voting for Biden, whether they're voting for Trump. If you have not had a chance to read the indictment for the classified documents case, take yourself 45 minutes to an hour. It's easy read. I believe it's like 49 pages long. The first like 10 pages is just kind of it's talking about what's involved, all that stuff. It doesn't get to the meat of it. So you could kind of flip through a little bit of it and then get to the meat of it and understand exactly what the difference is between Joe Biden, Mike Pence, and what Donald Trump did. I mean, Mike Pence and Joe Biden, I will admit, I still don't understand why these guys, whoever they are, just take these documents, go home, put them somewhere, and don't understand that they have them or don't remember why they had them or why they took them home. That is a mystery to me. And if anybody wants to have a discussion, I don't care who did it. You know, I am interested and curious as to why this happens. It is just very bizarre. But the difference between what Donald Trump did and what Biden and Pence did, Biden and Pence, their attorneys or whoever found out that there was documents in there, they instantly called and said, hey, we have these documents, please come get them. Donald Trump had to be called and say, we know you have these documents. And he said, no, I don't. And they said, yes, you do. And he's like, no, I don't. Leave me alone. And after a while, they said, look, man, we're just going to come to your house and we're going to check your house to get these documents. I don't have them. So they go finally, after a year, they gave this guy a year to admit that he had the documents, to admit, you know, or just to give them back. That's all they were asking to do. And he did not give them back. He lied to them numerous times. They go into his house, they find the documents. You've seen the pictures, you've seen the news. They tried, or they pull the documents out, and then all of a sudden he changes his story. He says, well, I'm president. I can declassify things if I want to. I can take them. They're mine. And it turned into this whole thing. And, you know, again, it's just so infuriating that this trial probably won't happen this year. And neither will the Georgia one. And neither will the January 6th one. That one has an outside shot. The Georgia one's definitely not happening. I think we all saw that, and we talked about that on our last show. But it doesn't look like the documents case is happening. In fact, there's talk that Judge Eileen Cannon might even try to throw this case out altogether, which is insane because, again, if you read the indictment, you will find that there is no chance of him getting out of this. None. It is an airtight case that is open and shut. It is a slam dunk case that Donald Trump would be convicted again of however many counts he was charged for in that particular case. But please go read the indictment. But anyway, let's get back to, you know, what I was talking about is the innuendos and everything that major news channels use. Again, back in the old days, there were real journalists. There were people who were they cared about reporting the news. And now we have channels like a Fox News who not only do not care about the truth, they care about spewing out propaganda to really mix up the heads of their viewers. And, you know, the fact that they were sued and they settled. They didn't even lose the case. They settled because they probably thought they had no chance in that case, and they were going to settle for a lower amount of what the Dominion voting machines were suing for. $787.5 million they had to pay out. This is a news organization for flat lying every day to their viewers without hesitation, without caring about the viewer, without caring about the country, without caring about our democracy and the fairness in our voting. The Department of Justice of Donald Trump, and their own Department of Justice, their own election officials came out and said that this was the safest election in the history of our country, because it came through a time where a national pandemic was coming through and raging through the country. And basically what they're doing is they're using that pandemic as a way to say there was a lot of irregularities. Well, there was some different ways that people voted. There were, it certainly wasn't the same election that we've always seen, but there has been zero proof, zero evidence that anything had been done wrong during that election. And that has proven out time and time and time and time. In fact, there were 60 court cases that they tried to file. And I can say time 60 times if you want me to, but you understand what I'm saying. Time and time again, that nothing nefarious, nothing illegal happened during that election that would have overturned the results. In fact, anything that I saw that was illegal, there were a lot of Trump voters who illegally voted in that election. And then also, too, you go back to the Arizona recount. It was done by the cyber ninjas, who apparently is, if I remember correctly, and I'll have to go back and look, but I know they were more of a right-leaning sort of group. They went ahead and did a complete recount in Arizona. Not only did they find that there was nothing illegal done, they found that Joe Biden won by Arizona by even more than they thought the original time. But anyway, let's get back to this clip here. This is Jesse Waters talking about Donald Trump and after the election. And I mean, he is just down in the dumps about this. And again, I just want to keep everybody, I just remind everybody that this is a major news channel at 8 p.m. prime time, probably the most watched hour between 8 and 9 o'clock on a consistent basis every night. This is Jesse Waters. And he is so bad, and he's not bright at all. But a lot of people watch him. The good news is that Fox News ratings are nowhere near what they used to be. But there are enough people that still watch this. But I don't understand how you can listen to this and go, dude, I don't know how I take you seriously. But this is really pathetic, but it's also scary.
And these nitwits, consumed with hatred, are trying to destroy a man because he threatens their power. These are wicked people.
Like I said, I want to point out the language too. The language is wicked. He's talking about the people that are doing it. And all this is intended to do is to get the viewer angry, to get them boiled up, and to get them prepared and ready for a fight that they 100% want to happen. They are putting it in the minds of people to try to get it to happen. I personally believe that there will be a small percentage of people. And when I say small percentage, I don't mean 5-6 people. I mean, it could be a large amount of people. Like we saw, you would consider the January 6th crowd a large crowd, but overall it's a very small percentage of people. And I think what they want to do is they want to get this in their head, to get them boiled and their blood boiled. They know that they don't just watch this night and are getting them angry. They know that these viewers are watching this night after night after night after night. And when they use language like this, it's making them angrier and angrier and convincing them somewhere in their brain that maybe they do need to get ready for a fight.
Obsessed with a person, and we will seek justice. We guarantee that.
More language. We will seek justice. We guarantee that. If you're telling me that that's not and by the way, let's make one thing clear. This guy that you see on the screen, Jesse Waters, is going out to fight nobody. Trust me. This is, again, another snake oil salesman who's trying to get you to do, not you guys, but them to do his bidding, to do Donald Trump's bidding, while they sit back and laugh at you idiots for going out on the streets with your guns. And next thing you know, you're in front of a judge crying and weeping that you're never going to see your daughter again. Please, judge, let me out. And the judge goes, dude, yeah, you're a fucking moron. You shouldn't have done it.
This man's life is a Greek tragedy.
Oh,
From billionaire, bankruptcy, TV star, Hollywood Walk of Fame, divorces, marriages, children.
bankruptcies, divorces. It's such a tragedy. All this awful stuff happens to this poor guy.
And that was even before he enters politics. And then you have investigations and hoaxes and a pandemic.
Hoaxes.
And now they're trying to incarcerate this person.
You know, he uses the word hoaxes. And, you know, part of the hoax that they always talked about was about the election being stolen. And the fact that he's still using this language after his network was sued for $787.5 million is amazing to me.
And the only way this act ends if he is reelected.
It cuts off there, and I'm concerned or interested to hear what he had to say towards the end. But, you know, Jesse Waters says himself, and I think I've heard him say this before. I'll go back and look it up because I don't like to be wrong, but I'm almost positive it was him that says he doesn't like to go on other talk shows because he's going to be exposed as an idiot. In essence, that might not have been the exact words, but I think he said something to that effect, and he would be 100% right. He would not go on other shows that would challenge his very feeble brain because he knows it would not work out well for him. But anyway, there's another clip where Judge Janine, and again, this is concerning because she was an actual judge and she should know the law, but this was her take on the trial and how Donald Trump, of course, you know, this poor guy just never gets a fair shake.
All of a sudden, this defendant now is finding out what the other crime is. He was denied his Fifth Amendment right to know the charges against him in the indictment, the bill of particulars, discovery, and in the opening statement, and throughout the trial.
The most concerning thing about that is she was a judge and he was not denied his Fifth Amendment right. He was denied his Sixth Amendment right, is the one that she's talking about. But of course, he was not denied that right. He was not denied the charges against him. He knew the charges against him. In fact, if even on TV court shows, on movie court shows, they always ask the defendant, do you understand the charges against you? And you have the ability to say yes, or you have the ability to say no. And I don't know if there's a court case that has ever gone by where a judge did not ask, do you understand the charges against you? That didn't happen. First of all, I know it didn't happen in that trial because there's a transcript that shows that the judge clearly asked Donald Trump, do you understand the charges against you? And he clearly said he does. So again, major news channel with the anger, trying to get people upset, trying to get a group of people who they at this point know does not care about the truth, but they're going to believe her truth. They're going to believe Jesse Waters' truth. They're going to believe whatever truth it is that makes them feel comfortable about their anger towards the libtards or the left or liberals, whatever the fuck. You know, they call everybody. What they don't understand and what they will never understand is that the so-called left, and I want to point out one thing, by the way, and I'll get back to my original point here, but I personally am not a big fan of the labels. I don't like to be labeled as liberal or left or progressive or whatever it is. What I personally like for me is, you know, that, damn it, my battery's getting ready to go dead. Hold on. There is no way I can record this show. Has anybody ever watched a podcast where somebody just fucking ran off so they could charge their battery? I don't believe I didn't put my charger in here. But anyway, what I was trying to say is that the difference, this is what I feel. I feel like I like to just get up. I like to go to bed, wake up in the morning, spend my day, go to bed during that day. And in that time, I like to be able to go through life without trying to figure out what I'm mad at that does not affect me in my life. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm angry about things that are going on in this country. There's absolutely no question about it. But it affects people that I know and love. It affects, a lot of people, even if I don't know them. It is just something that I not am in the same camp as people who decide that they want to hate different groups of people, whether it be their color, whether it be their sexual orientation, their religion, what country they're from. That never resonates with me. I don't understand why that happens. And not to mention, a lot of it is based on stuff that just isn't true. I've talked about this a billion times. The transgender community, first of all, there's very little of them nationwide and percentage-wide that for me, it would be considered what people are calling an issue. But if you are a transgender person, I have to decide when I wake up in the morning or before I go to bed, does this affect my life in any way? And the answer is no, it doesn't. And you know what? At the end of the day, too, they're human beings. I've talked about this too before, that they also have parents, and parents don't want to see their kids hanging from a ceiling when they come home because the suicide rate is very high in that community. So, that's just where the big difference is for me, and I'll just never understand it. But I want to play this one last clip here. And this is how things are done. Sometimes people ask me, where do you get your news? And I like to read a lot. I like to read, I'll still read the Washington Post, the New York Times. I have The Hill. I have Axios. I think I like, and again, some of the things that I see coming from these news organizations are disappointing. And it's not because it's not something I don't agree with. It's just because I do believe that a lot of these news organizations have got to now get into the same sort of game that everybody else is. And it's, how do I get clicks? And what I'll do is I'll just post Donald Trump's going to win the election for 20 days in a row and freak people the fuck out. There's going to be a big red wave in 2022, freak people the fuck out. So people are clicking on their things. And to me, that's very disappointing. But, I would say, so I get it. I do like to read. But one person in particular that I will proudly say I get my news from is Jon Stewart. And people go, oh my God, you're getting it from a comedian. He's a comedian, sure. And he does a comedy show. But I will tell you, and I don't agree with every single thing Jon Stewart says. I don't agree with that. And everybody doesn't agree with what I say. And that's just how life is. And that's just how things go. But Jon Stewart, to me, is a master at being able to talk to somebody about a particular issue and be on top of his game 100% of the time. It is a master class that when I hear him interviewing anybody, I am going to be there every time, especially if it's somebody that would be considered on the opposite side. So, he interviewed on his show the other night. And by the way, before I get to the interview, he interviewed Ken Buck, who was a former representative from the state of Colorado. But Ken Buck had saw what was going on in this Congress, and he looked around and he's like, man, this is way too crazy for me. I got to get the fuck out of this because this is just nuts. This is one of the reasons why the Democrats are one seat closer to being in charge of the House with zero election. None. They are continuing to get closer because Republicans are dropping out because of the nutballs like a Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boeberts. They look around and go, nah, I got to get out of this. And it's kind of a shame because, you know, we need even Republicans, we need Democrats who understand rule of law. They understand the actual Constitution. They actually understand democracy in this country rather than this batshit crazy faction that basically wants us to root for Russia now. And it just makes no sense. But anyway, Jon Stewart had Ken Buck on. And I was going to say he had on that very same show. If you have not had a chance to see it, he did a brilliant piece, an absolute brilliant piece of the trial, the Trump trial, and finding him guilty. And he also did a piece in that same clip about how the media covers it. So you should really go watch it because he was kind of showing the difference between the court of public opinion that Donald Trump tries to get everybody to buy into versus actual court where you have to prove facts. And you could see, and all of us obviously already know this, but the way Jon Stewart laid it out was so great and so brilliant. The difference between the court and public opinion and the difference between actual court where you have to bring actual proof. Brilliant. Just absolutely brilliant. But I do want to play this clip of him interviewing Ken Buck. And Ken Buck, they're talking about Donald Trump and they're talking about the trial. And Ken Buck thinks for a second he's on Fox News until he realizes that he's talking to somebody who is smarter than him on this subject, at least. And you'll see that in the clip and judge for yourself. In my opinion, he's smarter than him on this subject. And he's not on Fox News. This is not a softball interview. He's not going to let him get away with so many of his answers, and so many times where he tries to. Jon Stewart continues to press, and it's absolutely brilliant. And I think you guys will enjoy this.
Had the authority to request a search warrant, put handcuffs on somebody, prosecute somebody. That is always done by an independent Department of Justice.
Right.
On the other hand, Alvin Bragg ran for office to get that authority to do those very things. It's two separate situations.
Not solely, and also those things come with a process. He can't just go in there and go, arrest that guy. This isn't Navalny. This is a grand jury was impaneled of normal New Yorkers, not Alvin Bragg. And he presented his evidence. And they came back and said, yeah, there's a case here. So then they impaneled the jury. And then both sides got to choose.
You can indict a ham sandwich. That's what a grand jury is known
Okay,
for.
but generally you wouldn't convict a ham sandwich.
No.
Brilliant.
At some point, 12 New Yorkers would go, that's just a ham sandwich.
Brilliant. So, I mean, that's what I love. I mean, obviously the first line is that Alvin Bragg's a Democrat and this is a political witch hunt. Well, Jon Stewart lays out to a guy who was a lawmaker. This isn't some idiot MAGA that you work with. This was a lawmaker who's going to try the same bullshit on Jon Stewart's show that he would easily probably be able to lay out on Jesse Waters' show. If he said the same thing on Jesse Waters, not only would he agree with Ken Buck, but Jesse Waters would take it to a completely different level of lying. But here, Jon Stewart's like, no, buddy. Just because he's a Democrat, there's a process on top of this. It's not like we just went in and said, you are in jail now, Donald Trump. There were two different ways that Alvin Bragg had to prove his case. One, through a grand jury, and the second time through an actual court case. But let's get back.
And we will see what an appeals court does. Look, you're putting me in an unenviable position of defending Donald Trump. I've spent a long time.
I'm putting you
people
in a position of defending the process that he was put through. That process has standards. You said it yourself. An appeals court is going to look at this. There are many safeguards within our legal system, and he's getting the benefit of almost all of them. In a way that poor New Yorkers will never get a sniff of.
Agree both.
Again, I want to go back because I got so I get excited when I see stuff like this, because Ken Buck, who is used to in this Republican Party, he's used to either using innuendo or trying to circumvent the answer or the question or whatever it is. And you could tell he's already starting to run out of answers. So he wants to try to deflect this whole thing and try to get out of this by saying, hey, look, to make a joke, you're trying to get me to defend Donald Trump. Jon Stewart didn't let him slide there. He goes, no. I'm not trying to get you to do any. I'm trying to get you to defend the system, not Donald Trump. Forget about Donald Trump. This should happen to anybody. You know, I keep hearing this. If they do it to me, they can do it to you. Bullshit. That's not what it should be. It should be, if they can do it to me, they fucking better do it to him.
So he's getting dewier process than anybody has ever gotten. So I don't understand. Just because you don't like the result. He doesn't like the result of the election. Our elections are a fraud and we're a third world country. He doesn't like the result of a criminal case. Our courts are a fraud. Well,
real quick, just look at Ken Buck. You could tell his wheels are spinning. He's like, I don't know how to fucking answer this. How am I going to get out of this?
what would make him better? If they did what I wanted.
No,
that's not our system.
No,
that's a monarch.
I think what would make them better in his mind if they didn't convict him.
That's my point.
Yeah, but I don't think he wants justice in this country. I don't think he's standing up and saying we need justice. He's standing up and saying the election's stolen, so let's see if we can overturn the election in Congress. I didn't win in the courts, so let's go to Congress. I voted to certify those electors, by the way.
You walked out here, and you said to me, this is just 15 minutes ago.
Okay, he's gonna make a joke about how you said we weren't gonna agree on something, and here we are agreeing. And he's of course doing his Jon Stewart thing, but that to me is absolute brilliance, and that's why if I tell anybody I follow Jon Stewart, if you watched his Apple show and you watched any of his interviews that he did with the woman in Arkansas who was trying to stop the any programs for transgender people, or the gentleman he talked to about guns, or the gentleman he talked to about overturning the election in Arizona. It is pure brilliance. It is just absolute brilliance. And, you know, I have nothing but the highest respect for somebody that can be in a conversation with somebody and not just hold their own, but basically own the entire conversation with absolute 100% fact. And literally almost every time he interviews somebody, the person on the other side is like, oh shit, how do I get out of this? This is not good. But anyway, thank you guys for watching this little bonus show. It is 8:12, so I have got to get prepared and ready for the Boston Celtics game 1. I know some of you don't care about this. I need you to know how important this is to me. I need the Celtics to win 4 more games to be the world champions. They haven't won since 2009. I've been a fan since I was a kid, since the early 80s. So I really need the Celtics to win this. If you're watching this and you don't care about who wins, or you're a Celtics fan, good on you. But if you don't care who wins, send me some positive vibes. I'd appreciate that. I apologize for having to run and get my charger. Thank you for sticking with me through that. And you can join us again on Tuesday night, Black and White with Brian Rundle and Lana Quest. She will be back with me on Tuesday night, and she does her show on Thursday nights. Like I said, she's not going to be doing her show tonight because she was running a 5K. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. We'll be back on Tuesday night, and we will see you then.